Hi everyone, it's Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. It's 25th of October and I'm bringing you another map update. Some people asked me that I would put my camera up for an experiment for these map updates. I don't really understand why, because I will be mostly looking at the map, so I cannot keep the contact. But let's try and see how it goes. So today's map update, and we're gonna start with something that everyone has been talking a lot in the recent days, and I'm very happy about it. And it's the Bakhmut offensive, or defensive for Russians now, because Russians have been pushed back extremely hard. If you haven't followed the news, then Russian goal was basically try to push Bakhmut from the south, then try to push it also from the east, and then help from the south and from the east, and essentially collapse the defense lines and capture Bakhmut. But now we know that the 93rd Mechanized Brigade was defending here. They are gods of war, absolutely elite unit, and they were defending like there was no tomorrow. Russians couldn't advance 5 meters without really heavy losses. And now we know that some reinforcements came in for the Ukrainians, and not only they were able to protect Bakhmut better, they were able to push east all the way past the M03 lines, that is more than 5 kilometers. To put it in some kind of a relatable terms, that is undoing over 3.5 months of effort for the Russian forces. That is undoing hundreds and thousands even of Russian troops that are being sacrificed to advance further, because Russians, they don't know how to advance nice and tactically. They only advance by using overwhelming artillery advantage. And when there is no advantage, then all these fancy Wagner groups are just getting obliterated by the skills of the Ukrainian forces. So we see here that Wagner is not much different than the other Russian forces. It's just because they were having such an advantage in equipment and artillery here, they were able to advance little by little. Russian army cannot, they don't know how to fight. They have a lot of other problems, but I want to still speak about this. But the point is, Bakhmut is safe and secure. Russians being pushed out. They've been undoing. Ukrainians have been undoing all of the work that Russians have been doing, and Bakhmut is doing crazy. Remember, I said to you that you should trust in armed forces of Ukraine. Trust in armed forces of Ukraine. The victory will be Ukrainian. Now let's talk about the northeastern part. So here I was reporting last time, and I said that Russians were doing a little bit of a counterattack. They were attacking towards Terny, and they were actually taking some of the village here. However, Ukrainians really kind of was either expecting this attack, or they just were looking for opportunity. But as soon as that attack kind of came in and Ukrainians prepared to counterattack, they not only counterattacked and kicked the Russians out of that village, they actually are now pushing on this whole wide front line all the way in front. So they're pushing pretty much on all directions. The only kind of stumbling block was around this part, is where Russians saw that Ukrainians are advancing along this road and trying to get to Svatove. And they said, we need to cut this road at all costs. And that's why they kind of pushed for an attack around here. So there's a little bit of a holdback, but as far as I'm hearing, they're slowly but surely clearing it up. Right now, basically, the Russians are holding on to the last villages before the Svatova Kremina line. Fighting is happening around these villages, and I'm hearing positive vibes. So after that, the Ukrainians will advance here and then move towards Svatove. It is not a fast attack, yes, but we can definitely see a lot of reports happening around Kremina, and also videos are coming from this area, well, most from the western side of this area, where Ukrainians are advancing and capturing some positions and capturing new vehicles, and people are reporting that gunfighting is already not that far from Kremina. Ukrainians are advancing in the north as well. So really good news. Something that I must stress, because this is something. So after 8 months of offensive, Russians were able finally to secure control of the Pisky village. The last part was kind of still hold, and there was no access to the road. Now Russians have been able to push the Ukrainians beyond the road. So just after 8 months of effort, they were able to capture this village. That's it. That's pretty much it. What we're talking about. So then let's talk about the Kherson front line. So there is some ideas about what is happening in Kherson. There's still a curfew on the information. But we definitely know that Russians have been saying that they've moved out of these villages. There's some other movements in other villages. But the idea is simple. Russians are now pretty much preparing to defend Kherson. They are basically pulling out all of the troops that are not battle capable or their police force, and they are supplementing them with forces that are supposedly should be able to defend. So as much as there was a lot of hype about Russians getting out of Kherson, they're not. They're preparing for defense. So whatever was going out was only the units that were considered to be, well, basically useless in the fight. So that's why Kherson today is going to be, well, not today, but it's going to be a battleground for still quite a long while. There is still not enough supply, so Ukrainians will still just continue targeting and shelling both Kherson. We know that the Ukrainians are looking to capture Berislav and then control the Kakhovka dam and then go on from there. And this is a nice kind of way to transition into the next part where we're going to talk about the Kakhovka dam. So big question, I'm actually going to even switch to my logging camera. Oh my. Let's go with a map view. So big question to me was always, well, would they blow up Kakhovka Dam? And I'm going to correct myself. I said no, because there was no military objective that it achieved. However, I've been pointed out that I might have been wrong. So let's quickly go over here. So if you will see Kakhovka Dam, it will pretty much flood kind of this area roughly. And what this does is this prevents Ukrainians essentially from crossing and then advancing towards Crimea. So the only way they will be able to do that is either cross somewhere on the north part of the river or go around here. That is not ideal, of course. So flooding this region here would actually allow Russians to prevent the Ukrainian advance towards Crimea. However, what I wanted to say is that while it is possible and there is some military significance, the consequences on a strategic level would be atrocious for Russians. It would be devastating because whatever resemblance of humanity around Russians, like people are estimating there's going to be about 80,000 people that will essentially get flooded after this dam collapses. So it's going to be a lot of dead people. After that, it's going to be pretty much equated to a mass killing on the Russian side. So the consequence, you can think about them. It's going to be pretty much exclusion Russia from any kind of negotiation process. Like they stop being human. And I'm hoping it's already now like very close for Russians to be completely excluded from any kind of discussions around the world. But after doing that, that's catastrophic. And then secondly, this is obviously creating a lot of related problems, like problems with because the nuclear power station in Zaporizhia, the one near Energotar, is actually getting cooled off by feeding from this reservoir of water that is held by this dam. So if the dam is gone, then the cooling of this power station will become a big problem, and that's a potential nuclear risk. Then this would also mean that there will be no water for Crimea for many, many, many years, which again defeats the whole purpose and idea that water for Crimea was very much important for the Russians. I guess it wasn't that much, because if they're ready to take some kind of a slight military adjustment to, and I'm going to underscore this, delay Ukrainian forces. It will not stop the Ukrainian forces. It will delay them and prevent some axis of advances. So it's, while it solves some military problems, it doesn't solve many of them, but I definitely can see them doing it. And I'm going to explain why in the next part, which is the dirty bomb. I mean, not, guys, we have seen basically Russia doing the reverse evolution. Russia went from being some kind of sane, we thought about Russian and Putin like a mastermind, the master strategist, person who thinks multiple steps ahead. And then when he started invading, like, well, he's feeling adventurous, it's like he's betting, making risks, maybe it wasn't like something that would be done by multiple years of planning, but it was still quite big because Russia was ambitious, big power. And then kind of coming to, like, when it was around Kiev offensive, we started noticing it's like some of these things that Russians are doing are kind of dumb. It's like they're not really very smart. And then some of the things they're claiming are not very smart as well. And then by the second part, like when Russia started assaulting on the east side of the front line, and we're like, wow, they don't have any strategy at all. It's like they are pretty dumb. And then like a lot of the propaganda pieces started coming up, and we saw like wow, they are not smart at all. They are like really really pushing it to then when Russia finally decided to move a lot of the forces into the Kherson entrapment, it is still a trap. Like putting a lot of forces in a position where they're starved for supplies and not able to fight properly and just being slaughtered by HIMARS is a dumbass idea. Russia, like at that moment, was like, oh my god, that was really dumb. They literally lost a good chunk of war effort that they could have. Like all these forces that are stuck on Kherson could have fought, for example, in Donbass. They could have taken Donbass. They could have said, okay, political victory achieved. Like they cannot stop, for example, this war because the political victory is not achieved. And they could have said, okay, we have the whole control of Donbass. Like they could have, instead of Kherson, they taken Donbass, and then have this river along the river like a nice defensive. So it's you get what I'm saying. And now we are slowly getting to this talking about dirty bomb. And I'm sorry, but this is already like not even nonsense. This is just primitive. If before it was a little bit like, talking and joking around how stupid it is. At this point, to be honest, it even stops being funny because it's something like akin to like a 3-year-old and someone showing him, the finger trick, the disappearing finger trick, and everyone's kind of like, "Wow, why would you?" And I'm discussing it, and then say like, "That's that like the finger like he what are you 3? Are you 3?" So I cannot even laugh anymore about this. This is literally Russia going like Googling nuclear and then expanding keywords and then randomly picking any kind of keyword that is related to nuclear and then every couple of weeks then coming up with some kind of new story. Let's get over this. I don't want to say anything, but this story, it doesn't exist and we should not. Like, I mean, the whole premise is they're saying that Ukraine, the country that has been fighting for 8 months, that has no nuclear arsenal, is has been fighting and receiving, basically being on the receiving end of all of the weapons that Russia is having. And then the honest Russia decided 8 months in to say, oh, that Ukraine is actually preparing to blow up a dirty bomb in destroying one of our arsenals. It's like on the Russians' arsenals, like Russian weapons stockpile. And I mean, come on, don't be 3. Like talking about this just shows you the intellect of people that are talking about this. Well, like me. And then the last point to kind of round it off up today, I wanted to talk because it came up, is about the fact that mobilization failing now, but just give it time, and then just give it a little bit of a time, and then during winter, like the people that will survive the winter for Russians, they will come out as elite forces, like battle rugged survivalists, like every second of them BR grills, only like not fake one. But it's like super strong Russian men that will basically with bare hands completely destroy and bend any kind of resemblance of Ukrainian army or armed forces that they're having. And no, of course not. There is more to this war than just personal skills. Will the people that will survive the winter get some kind of skills? Yes. They will become more professional at surviving. They will understand their battle situation a little bit more. They will be able to train some kind of new recruits. Fair enough. But it does not improve logistics of Russians. It does not improve their command structure. Having more men, the mobilization and even rugged mobilization, does not give a proper, well-coordinated NCO corps. It does not change the fact that the weapon that Russia is receiving is basically just degrading as they are wearing it. Right now, one of the most important thing that I noticed about like Russians posting videos, how poor, like Russian mobilized men posting videos, how poorly they're living, is that every time I see someone coughing on the video, like it's not even winter, they're already having sicknesses. Like next time you're gonna see around winter, people will be showing, like how their feet and hands are becoming blue and almost like, getting the freezes, you know. So winter is going to be devastating for the mobilized people. And Ukraine, right now, like if we're talking global scale, there's two ways how you can improve, like quality and quantity. Ukraine already has the quality advantage. Ukraine is fighting Russia that has the quantity advantage with quality. So as Ukraine will get more stuff that it is already having, it's going to expand its quantity. And at that moment, it's going to start negating Russia's quantity advantage. Russia may grow, at least try to match Ukraine in quantity and like keep the gap, but the quality of Ukraine will also be rising. The fact that Ukraine we're going to start seeing, like F-16s, planes, other NATO equipment. There's going to be more and more. There's nothing that, like, Ukraine still has a lot of potential to mobilize, especially with the partners providing the training grants for any kind of newly mobilized troops, allows to free up many, 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 many more resources than Russians would ever wanted. The transitioning towards NATO standards for Ukraine will continue. Russians, while they can get a lot of equipment that is super old, like T-62s, and maybe make some of the like couple of tens of new tanks, yes, this will not create a battle-capable army. Russia is not rebuilding its army. Russia is trying to plug any hole with as many bodies as it can. It is not how you make an excellent modern military. With that said, big thanks. I'm donating at least 50% of this channel's profits to Ukrainian military every time I get a paycheck from YouTube. So any kind of like, subscribe helps a lot. And obviously, amazing thanks to all of the Patreons and subscribers of this channel. Your support helps me create more videos and, more importantly, make sure that Ukraine matters and Ukrainian army gets the support it needs. Slava Ukraini! See you next time.